ask you a question about contemporary dance, because we kind of don't really know what it is as it's developing now, and so it really could be anything. I mean, it's a baby. It's we're breastfeeding, so. So what elements do you think make up contemporary dance, or makes up contemporary dance for you?
I think that some of the most interesting work that I've seen, and certainly my work, is sort of the rebellion against, Yvonne Rainer's No Manifesto, where she pushed against all of the, heroism and theatricality of modernism. I feel like artists now are sort of writing their own yes manifestos, where all of these things have happened before that pushed really hard against one another to identify themselves, and now we're saying, you know what, I like a little bit of this, and I like a little bit of that, and I like a little bit of this, and you know what, yeah, sure, how about some digital media, and yeah, how about a costume that extends my body in some crazy way,
right.
And yeah, sure, you know what, I can throw a gorgeous developing second in there, and then I can walk around the stage like I'm going to the bus, and then I can, and all of those things are starting to play with one another in a way that I think at its best is sort of similar to magical realism, where the audience can look at the stage and say, oh, these are people like me, people that I can recognize, and they're doing these fantastic, amazing things. So dancers are no longer a crazy other that we can't access. They're also not doing things that we all can do. We sort of got through that in the 50s and 60s. Right. Now it's 2011. Right. Still going on. But so I think that saying yes is really exciting in contemporary dance.
To the physical body and what it does, and the other elements.
The other theatrical elements and sort of mixed media. There's a lot of mixed media. There's a lot of the way that technology is interfacing with live theater now is really interesting. So I think there are a lot of different elements of contemporary art that are now coming into dance. I think also contemporary art is experimenting with performance and time-based mediums too, so suddenly dance is getting a few more props and a little bit more respect, which is fantastic.
I think it's very interesting, because to hear you talk, I'm not surprised that that's your perception of what contemporary dance is. Because for a lot of contemporary choreographers, it hinges on the body, movement-wise, and then we make the body do these things, and then we dress it, or and then we light it. Not saying that there's not an integration of conceptual integration, but the idea that the body is still very much a focus. At least I can say a lot of American contemporary choreographers, the body just goes and goes and it does, and you're just like, oh my God, is there a hip socket there? Right. You go like, or it's that physical marathon of people moving, and especially since we have now there's a wave of what is it called? The competition dance, sort of. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? So this is what is clouding sort of the idea of contemporary dance, because any and everything can kind of fit up in there, and so I see your perspective is it makes sense to hear you say that, because it's very in line with what your experience has been and what you're drawn to, whereas there's a whole other side of that is just break a rule, break a physical rule. You know what I mean? I'm not supposed to do this, so I'm going to turn my leg in, and I call it the crotch throw up. That leg.
Position. That's a new position. I've noticed that in my teaching.
It's a competition position.
Weird turn.
You turn
the dog at a fire hydrant is what we used to call it, but now apparently it's
accepted. I call it look at my crotch. Because they put their leg up, right? They put their leg up and they kind of look at you. Underneath it.
I know, I've seen that too.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And I find that, because I also teach a lot.
Right.
And I do think that it's interesting what all these competition shows are sort of offering and pushing. the last group show that I did had only one dancer who was under 33, and so all of us were a little bit, mature for the dance world, and we laughed a lot about how none of us were going to do that. All of us were going to sell this show on our presence,
right?
And then suddenly we started having conversations about how old-fashioned that was. Actually, the idea of stage presence, of quality of movement, of the beauty of stillness and the space between things. But those are actually very old-fashioned ideas. And certainly my particular push against unison movement is totally not popular. People see my work and they're like, well, there's no dancing. But it's insanely physical, but there's no unison movement.
It's not that feeling that you get. I get it.
When you watch the crew, like a dance crew.
But it's a rush. Even in dance pieces, be they modern, ballet, whatever, when people dance together, there's a rush. There's this it does something to you to see things in unison. Now, what it does, depending on, like you said, it could be the military marching. It's very intimidating, right?
Yeah.
But I get it. It's like the big finish thing of like,
totally.
Yes,
I get it too.
Yeah, da-da-da. It's that. I get it. But it's the challenge. I think it's also challenging to watch things that are not in unison. You have to learn how to make a choice,
right?
Sometimes, in what area or what to watch.
And I think that's what a lot of contemporary artists are interested. I mean, as Merce Cunningham started dealing with multiple points of focus again, like back in the 50s. And the thing is, it causes the audience to have to participate. They have to be engaged. And there is an audience out there that wants to be stimulated and engaged, but it may not be the mass public, and it may not be the people with the money. Right. And so I think contemporary artists are really in an intense rut right now because the economy is terrible. Right. So consumerism we have to pay attention to the commercial value of what we're doing.
You have to work. You have to be booked. It has to sell.
It has to sell.
To somebody.
Yeah. And that's not a new problem, but I think the intensity of how well competition does sell is putting a very strange pressure on contemporary artists now.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I asked the question.